Well, of course, right in the studios, we have an interesting guest who joins us as the world on February 13th celebrates World Radio Day, and we'll be talking more about the importance or the nexus between radio as a preferred means of communication and its impacts, or perhaps its role in the fight against climate change. And I have here with me Mr. Onengye Fineface. He's the head of English Desk AUB. And for those of you who don't know, AUB stands for the African Union of Broadcasters. Good to have you join us, Mr. Fineface.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you as well, Abdullahi.
Very well. So just before we go deep into our discussion, the very big, let me say global, because at the end of the day, it's about Africa speaking for itself, about homegrown solutions to fight climate change, which we hope in the nearest future will be the model adopted by key players outside the continent. But before we speak on that, tell us, what is AUB? What do you stand for?
Well, AUB is the Africa Union of Broadcasting. It's an organization that is made up mainly of broadcasting organizations across the African continent. We have primarily members, active members drawn from national broadcasters from all the countries on the continent. And then we have other members, associate members, who are basically private entities that have shown interest to join broadcasting. What AUB does really is to build the capacity of the media in Africa to become competitive while sustaining and projecting the African narrative. We are at a time when media hegemony and basically the whole issue of dominance has painted negative pictures of Africa. So something happens in a country and then the international conglomerates come around and look at just the bad side. Everything African is black, it's negative, it's bad. And so AUB is building the capacity of the media in Africa to tell the African story from the African perspective in a way that reflects the true African self. We don't need to depend on people who don't know us to talk about us. So we want to be able to tell our stories from our own perspective as Africans. And that's what the AUB is doing, building capacities to achieve this target.
Mm. And one of the areas that interests the AUB to build capacity on, especially with journalists and other stakeholders, is climate change, issue of climate change. And this is very true because Africa, this contributes to the global phenomenon of climate change, but somehow it's at the extreme end of the trouble, the issues, the repercussions of that. Now, AUB held its first media summit on climate change, which you said was on
disaster risk reduction.
That's the risk reduction. And this is your second summit. However, this particular summit is about radio and climate. Why radio?
To give context, this summit is the product of the World Broadcasting Union, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, and AUB partnership called Media Saving Lives Initiative. Now, this initiative intended to help journalists, help media executives to understand the concept of climate change within the African experience, and of course, those of other partners in other regions, like the Arab States Broadcasting Union is part of it, the Asia Broadcasting Union is part of it, Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union is part of it. So what we do is help people to localize the problem, localize solutions, share these with others, and then build capacity so that we can help people adapt, mitigate, and build resilience against climate change. Now to the question of why radio. The choice of radio for this year underscores the importance of reaching people wherever they are. The theme is reaching the last mile, radio for climate action. The easiest way to reach the last mile, to make sure that no one is left behind, is to use channels that can reach everybody. In Africa, we still have countries that are lagging behind when it comes to internet penetration. There are lots of people that are yet to be reached through internet penetration. But radio goes everywhere,
And even
almost everywhere.
and even in areas where you have internet access, you still have a lot of these people who neither read or write.
Exactly. Who might not also afford the devices needed to use the internet, but radio gets to them. So we chose radio because with radio, you can pass on the message to everybody and then mobilize citizens to take responsibility, take action, do what they need to do as well when it comes to fighting the scourge of climate change. The point is radio for climate action. So we want people to take action, people to take responsibility, people to know what to do at what time, to know their roles, to know who to go to when there is a problem. That's why we chose radio. And the date coincides with the global commemoration of World Radio Day, which this year is also focused on climate change. So it's basically a marriage of our intents with that of the global community.
Well, Mr. Fineface, as we proceed in this interview, I really want to ask a quick one. Based on your assessment, how would you rate the fight against climate change across the continent, with specific focus now on media contributions?
Well, you started by giving some kind of insight as to the fact that Africa contributes the least to global warming, but suffers the most from the impact of the climate emergency. The truth of the matter is that although Africa does not contribute much, it is not immune to the crises that follow. And when you have a lot of countries suffering all of these, people look forward to the media to provide them with life-saving information, early warning information, information about protocols and systems that need to be put in place to help people avoid hazards from cascading into disasters and so on and so forth. Now, that is not done so much on the continent. We're not saying people are not doing it, but people need to do more. We need to ramp our action. So our interest now is to build the capacity of those responsible for ramping this action, ramping information to people. And that's journalists. That's why we chose media. If you pass on useful information to people when natural hazards occur, you help them take action so that the hazards do not become disasters that will now destroy lives. So if people need to move, reaching the media, they'll be able to pass information to people to say, you are in a position that is prone to this hazard. Move from this point to point B so that you don't lose lives. So that's very important. So if you're able to get the media on board to scale their action in sharing information about disasters, then you save a lot of lives. And what can be more important than information that saves life?
So reaching the last mile, radio for climate action, is a theme for the 2024 AUB Media Summit taking place here in Dakar. And I would like you to expatiate more on that. Tell us which of the areas you will be exploring during this 2-day event.
Well, it's for 2025, reaching the last mile, radio for climate action.
Oh, that's the 2025, 2024.
2025. That's by the way. Anyway,
okay.
So it's okay. It's fine. First of all, we'll start off the event by looking at the role of radio in climate action, which is basically the focus of the World Radio Day. So we'll start off from there. We have experts that will talk to the issue. Experts from the scientific community, from media organizations, from United Nations systems, people that will tell us, in addition to what we think we know, how much more we can achieve in terms of giving out climate information using radio, which is very instrumental and very helpful as far as that is concerned. We also look at how we can bridge information gap using radio to address climate change and health impacts. I'll give you an instance. If there's a flood today in your locality here in Dakar, the impact will not be so much environmental as it will be health, because the immediate result of that flooding is that you have vectors and insects and all manner of things crawling around, giving people sicknesses and so on and so forth. There's also issue of transfer of these diseases and then transfer of the burden of care to health centers. If your station is able to inform people ahead of time that this is going to happen, those that need to relocate. Those that need to move to higher grounds, do. Those that need to take one precaution or the other, do so. What will happen is that people will be saved from that medical challenge. They get to know that with this incident, if we do this, we avoid this. And then reduce the burden on health centers. So we're looking at the nexus between climate change and health impact, and how radio can come in to ensure that when climate incidents, climate crises happen, people do not fall sick, because these are things that happen. There are also economic aspects to this, but we are looking at the health because we understand that health is wealth, health is life, so people need to know what to do when these things happen. But we are not just about experts coming to talk to locals, to people. We also want to hear from the locals. So this program has a provision to empower local voices, allow people who live the experience to come share their lived experience with others, to know what they are doing that might be right or wrong, where they need to continue, where they need to make adjustments. So it's not just a top-down event, it's bottom-up, up-down as well. You hear from the experts, you also hear from the people. So all classes of people are engaged. We have student community, we have religious leaders, we have traditional institutions, we have the expert community, the meteorological offices. All manner of experts are involved so that we can share experience on all of the areas we think radio can be instrumental to promote climate action in Africa.
Talk about climate action, Mr. Fineface. Let me ask, we have issues of animal grazing, livestock management, harvesting, processing and storage, fishing and marine resources, illegal mining, and waste management, among several others.
Yes.
Which today you have rural areas struggling with. Will this in any way dominate discussions, or at least have spotlight on or be spotlighted during discussions at the event?
Of course. I'll take the instance of Lake Chad, for instance, that is fast drying up. Now, it might seem like nothing or merely an environmental concern, but there is an agricultural implication, there's a security implication to that. When people's livelihoods are threatened, the tendency is that they want to do whatever it takes to protect it. Those depending on the Chad for animal grazing, for irrigation, are now into some kind of conflict over the main resources, water. So the more the lake dries up, the higher the need for water for those that depend on the lake for survival, and then tension begins to build up. You see communities going beyond their natural boundaries, looking for wetter grounds to graze their livestock, to get water for their farms, and then conflicts begin to rise here and there. But if people are informed about all of this, they can take precautionary measures. When it rains, they find a way to store water. Government can go into some kind of activities that will help them save for the dry season. So all of these things have interwoven rules, interwoven connection rather, because if you are able to solve the problem of information, you solve quite a lot of things. Rather than believe in, attribute these problems to, in Nigeria, we say village people. Mm-hmm. When these things happen, you think somebody is doing you something spiritual and so on and so forth. But if you have the right information, it helps you to guard against all of this, prepare yourself better, brace the impact when it actually happens. So yes, what we are doing covers these. We want to give people the right information. And how do you do that? The people that are responsible for sharing the information should first know what the right information is, how to use the best channel, which in this case we believe is radio, to reach the people. We're not just going to tell you radio is good. We're going to teach participants how to tell compelling stories that can attract the attention of listeners, how to tell stories in a way that scientific jargons are explained, simplified, so that the ordinary man can understand. How to tell stories using the language of the people. It doesn't matter your degree, how much of French or English you understand or speak. If you say something and the man you're speaking to does not understand you, you've not said anything. So we are teaching participants how to do all of this so that when they bring out this information, it's not just spoken, but it's understood. And then the expected outcome, which is action, is achieved.
I want to take you, we're almost near the end of this interview. I wanted to ask, while you were delivering your opening remark, you said something about, even though you're inviting the experts, say it's not just them telling you what they have to tell you, but you also have your data. Is you have done your research and there is something or things you know that you also want to share. Can you just give us a brief from that?
Okay, we have made a provision for people that are in rural communities to get involved. So what I said is that it's not just the big people, the experts coming to talk, but we're also bringing people from the communities, from the locals, to give their own, to explain their league experiences rather. So we have participants from community radio stations, from local communities, and they're not just coming to sit and listen. They are coming as participants, active participants, speakers in different panels, so that the experts will also understand what they are not doing right from the view of those for whom they are taking those actions. So if you're developing a strategy, say the Met Office in Senegal and are saying, if you are developing a strategy to reach out to these people, now they too will come and tell you, look, we appreciate what you're doing, but you're doing it on TV, or you're doing it in French. We want it in Wolof, or maybe any other, local language spoken by that particular community. So you get to know that you're doing the right thing, yes, but you're not doing it the right way. Because now you're going to hear from the people you designed that plan or project for. So it's a two-way thing. The experts will come and speak about the right thing to do, how to embrace this information and so on and so forth. But the people they are designing for will also come to tell them whether they are getting it right or not. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a learning process for everybody. The biggest beneficiaries are journalists that are coming from over 30 countries in Africa. Now, even if you are not on the panel, when you hear the experts from the Met Office say something, and then you get the response from the local community, you go back and you also make your own adjustments, knowing that you could do yours better. The overall target is pass information to save life, but you have to do that in a way that it makes meaning to the people and elicits the kind of action and response you want from the people.
And for AUB, you feel this is the greatest opportunity that you have, at least doing something very different from the conventional climate summit, where you have a room full of experts and activists all talking, presenting papers, and just leave.
Exactly.
It's the advantage you have.
Yes, it's a big advantage for us. It's an innovation. We intend to sustain it all around, not just to have the classroom experience, or even the classroom these days. It's becoming more interactive, all channels of communication, social media is there, so you don't just talk and walk away. No, you talk, you also listen. That's very important. So for this program, we have the Ministry of Environment will be represented. The Met offices are there. Red Cross is there. That's Anasim, which is the Met office in Senegal. We also have some other experts. And then we also take participants to the field. Okay? Of course, people have their own climate situations, but let them also see what is tenable in Senegal, learn from what Senegal is doing. It might not be the perfect example, but at least they know that, okay, in our own countries, our government is doing this like this, but here we have seen a different experience. In the course of the visit, even those from government authority in Senegal, we get to know what happens in other countries. So we're making this very interactive so that it doesn't just come from one side to the other, but there is a blend in the sharing of information across all the sectors involved. Let me add, we have provision for religious leaders to get involved. And I'll tell you why. There are some things a government official will say that might be taken for granted. But when an imam or a pastor tells his congregation that same thing, they take it serious. So we're also looking at these people that are opinion leaders in their own rights, traditional rulers, so that when they learn, get to know the right information and pass it on to their people, there is believability because there is already a sense of trust in those sources of information. That's why we involve all manner of people here. We want to get the right information passed to the right people using the right channels.
Talk about all manner of people. You did mention the place of women in this, and I wanted to speak more on that because at the end of the day, women are usually more at the receiving end of the climate shock because they are the farmers and they are also the mothers who go to polluted streams or rivers to get water. They are the ones who suffer most when their kids fall sick. They are the ones who inhale the carbon monoxide from using firewood and firewood, which today is the new campaign for solutions to renewable energy, affordable and renewable energy sources. So tell us more.
Yes, that's very correct. Women are well factored into this program. And not just this, the AUB has series of gender programs. So women are factored as one of the stakeholder groups for this event. Okay, we do understand the place of clean cook stoves where we know that this exposure to carbon monoxide affects a lot of women, a lot of deaths, in fact, in Nigeria, I did a story. I'm a journalist myself. So I did a story on how that affects people. And the locals told me that not just the women, even the men, that overexposure to the heat from charcoal affects fertility. And some of them, out of ignorance, take all manner of things, assuming that it will help boost their fertility. So it's a big problem. Yes, women are involved. I told you earlier that students too are involved. So we are not just limiting to women, even children. Worse, it's not, for this kind of program, we can't have all the groups of children, adolescents, kindergarten and all of that. So we have students to represent that group, So women are involved, their concerns are well taken care of in the agenda of this program.
High-level experts, women. We have high-level experts.
Yes, we have high-level experts that are women. We have high-level experts that are women. So they are represented in our choice of participants.
Well, as you wrap up this interview, Mr. Fineface, let me ask this. You said something about action plans coming out at the end of this summit. Now, how is AUB going to work with all stakeholders or guests or be the participants and partners in this summit to make sure that progress is measured in terms of implementation of some of the strategies that will be discussed, especially impacting journalists for better journalism in ensuring better coverage and dissemination of quality and relevant climate information, like you said, on disaster risk and preparedness.
Okay. Now, the Media Saving Lives initiative, which birthed this summit, it's not just about summits. It involves training of journalists. And beyond training of journalists, there is also what we call co-production. There is grants. Let me start from Mauritius. It started in Mauritius. Before Mauritius, there was online training. From online training, we had a training workshop in Mauritius where participants from all over the world, including European Broadcasting Union, were there. And after that training, participants were given grants to go into co-production, where you are in Senegal, you are working with someone in Côte d'Ivoire, looking at shared experiences, comparing solutions, comparing methodology, and so on and so forth, okay? So when we have summits like this, it doesn't end there. Some of the participants in this summit have been trained already, online and physically. Some have gone into productions. Some will go into the production and training stage as next. Others are coming from it. So it is a continuous process. We continue to build their capacities, support them, not just to learn, but after we teach you how to produce, we give you the funds to do the production yourself. In the course of that production, you get to learn. The organization is also empowered so that you don't just produce and keep to yourself. It's used and it's shared. The AUB has the AUB Vision platform, which is in Algeria, is situated in Algeria, the AUB News and Programs Exchange Center in Algiers. In that platform, we have all members of AUB pulled together to upload, contribute stories, and also take stories. So if you're a member of AUB, the moment these things are put on the platform, no matter your country, you have access to the stories. You can stay in Senegal, you get what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire, in Nigeria, in Namibia, Algeria, Morocco. Okay, so when we have these trainings, the outputs are shared to everybody, all the members. Through that process, you get to know what is tenable in XYZ country. And then you get to know how you can take the good practices there, localize it, and implement it to your own context. So it's not just a one-off program. It's not just a conference. It's a complete package of training, of productions, of grants, and then of summits like this to meet one-on-one and reflect on some of those lessons that might have been learned, and also maybe get some new insights, as we go on with getting the information passed across to people.
Well, thank you very much, Mr.
Onengye Fineface. You got it very right the first time.
Well, no, I mean, being a Nigerian is it's familiar. It's just I have to learn to pronounce the name. So, yes, Onengye Fineface. You are the head of English Desk AUB. Many thanks for being here, and it's been great talking to you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. We're excited that WADR is a major partner in this event, and we look forward to having you on board for future events as we go on together to build African capacities, to tell African stories from the African perspective, so that we don't fall victims to this wrong notion people have about the continent. We are capable, and we should let our capability known to the world. Thank you, WADR, for having me in your studios.